Yes, in previous class, we have done a maximization case where all constants were of the type less than and equal to. If you remember, what we have done is we have started with this question and we have done the two steps of it. First step was related to the formulation of the problem. We have formulated the problem and then standardization of the LPP or the linear programming problem by introducing the select variables. And as well as we have created the new Z, that's the optimized maximization. Optimization is constraints and non-negative restrictions. And then even third step we have done it, that is the set up the initial basic feasible solution. I explain you how we calculated. We have calculated n. We have considered n, where n was 5 variables and m was the three variables. And then we know a solution may be obtained by setting n minus m variables equal to 0. Over here, the n was, if you remember, n was 5 and minus 3 was equals to 2. What we have done, we have set two variables as 0 and the initial original or we have to start from the origin. So that's why from the basics x equals to 0 and y equals to 0 we have put. By that we have calculated the values of the other variables. And then z, objective function z equals to 0. We have calculated and by that we have received the basic feasible solution x equals to 0, y equals to 0 and values of other variables. Then we have created the first simplex W1 where what we had done in the first column was Cj, which is the contribution to the objective function. Then we have wrote basic variables, then solutions, and then all the variables, whatever were there in our solution, and their contribution or the coefficients, right? So first basic variables, the variables, those who have the non-zero value, which are in our solution, it was S1, S2, S3, and then their Cj, their contribution was 0. We have explained, I explained you how we have come up into the Z. Here Z, how it has been contributed, x equals to 0. Because I explained you over there, because when we have added x1, S2 and S3 in the solution, their coefficients have to be determined and the objective function should be modified accordingly. We have modified it accordingly by including, and when we know the coefficients may represent the cost involved in not using the timers. If you're not using the timers, but the cost is involved. So in that we have presumed that the unused resources, unused resources, suppose they are unused resources, have no cost. These unused resources have no cost, so they do not affect the profits. That's why the coefficient we have assigned to them was a 0. We have included it into it, and then sometimes in the exam or even in your viva, they can ask you the questions why we presume or why you have taken the coefficient 0 for S1, S2, and S3 for the select variables in the objective function. I explained you that part too. Now, then we know the solution of it in the table. That's why we have kept 0, 0, 0. Now the solution would be 3650, which we have calculated over here by keeping two variables as 0. Right? And then these are the coefficients. Right? So we have kept the coefficients also by 3, 3, 1, 0, 0, like that. In the first equation, 3, 3, 1, and other S2 and S3 are 0. Even you will observe or you will just notice that this is a unitary matrix. 1, 1, 1, right? So it's in that way. And then we have calculated J, which is a profit. How we calculated, whatever the solution we know, 36 multiply, how much is contributing to the profit? 0. 36 multiplied by 0 would be 0, plus 50 multiplied by 0 would be 0, plus 60 multiplied by 0 would be 0. So the contribution total, as of now in the solution, the contribution or the objective function of Z or the profit is 0. So like that, we will calculate for this too. 3 multiplied by 0, 0, plus 5 multiplied by 0 is 0, plus 2 multiplied by 0 is 0. So came out to be the 0. So like the same thing for the Y. 3 multiplied by 0 plus 2 multiplied by 0 plus 6 multiplied by 0. Right? So it comes out to be 0. Then for the S1 also we will calculate in the same way, for S2 also, for S3. That will come out to be the 0. Over here coefficient is 0. That's why. Now, then we calculate the Cj minus Zj, which comes out to be for this nothing. Then over here for x, Cj is 20 minus Z, 0 is 20. Over here is 30 minus 0 is 30. Then 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. So in the last row, Cj minus Zj is positive. So, and positive entry, इसमें सारी positive entry है, is 0 or positive. It means our current solution is not the optimal. And we will see which one is the maximum. This 30 is the maximum. Then that would be the entering variable. अगर हम इसको enter कर लेते हैं in the system on the basic variable, this y can be our entering variable so that it can contribute something 30. We can't lose this. Over, so we have in this way we have calculated, or we have identified this is a key column. We need to identify which is my key column. This is my key column. I have marked it with the green color, right? Now, we know we will calculate now this, if this would be the entering variable, which one would be the departing variable? हम कौन से variable को निकालें जिसके जगह हम y को लिखें? For that we calculate the ratio. उस ratio के लिए कैसे करते हैं? The solution whatever which is divided by the key column. 36 divided by 3, you will get the 12. 50 divided by 2 is 25. 60 divided by 6 is 10. So over here we know which one is a minimum? 10. Then 10 would be this row of 10 would be my key row. I have marked it with the green color, right? And then which is intersecting number, that would be the key number. Clear? So here S3 would be the departing variable and Y would be my entering variable. I think it's clear by this time. Okay, now let me explain you what does this Zj row means. This Zj row. Now, understand first thing about Zj row. Let me explain in writing by writing in first point. Let me take it A. I'm explaining you about Z row. Right? First thing, Zj element, whatever the element, is calculated for every column. For every column, starting from the solution column, starting from this point. We calculate it for everything. Second point, I'm not writing. I think you are understanding this. B, Z entry under the solution column gives the current value of the objective function. अभी करंट वैल्यू क्या है ऑब्जेक्टिव फंक्शन की? मीन्स हमारा प्रॉफिट कितना है? 0 एज ऑफ नाउ. तो जेड एंट्री अंडर द सॉल्यूशन कॉलम, दिस वन, this represents, or it gives you the current value of the objective function. The moment we change the solutions over here, or we change the objective contribution to the objective functions, this value would automatically change. Right? So as of now, Z is 0. That Z is 0. Or I will say the C part. I think it's clear. A part to C part. We say Z entries under other columns. And other columns has the following interpretations, or has the interpretation like it represents, let me write, it will make you clear more. It represents decrease in objective function that would result if one unit of variable in the solution is brought into the solution. I'm writing fast. Okay. What does it represent? It represents a decrease in the objective function. What would be the decrease in the objective function? Function that would result in one unit of that variable in the solution is brought into the solution. एक यूनिट करते हैं तो सॉरी दिस वन, एक यूनिट हम अगर करते हैं तो कितना डिक्रीज होता है? दैट इज द थिंग बाय द Zj. I think it's clear all the 3 points. First point was related to it is how it's calculated. It's calculated for every column starting from the solution column, right? Second point I explained, ZJ entry under the solution column. Under the solution column gives you the current value of the objective function. Thirdly, I explain you ZJ entries under the other columns, this other columns, that represents the decrease in the objective function, function that would result if one unit of that variable in the solution is brought into the solution. अगर मैं इसको x लिया तो कितना डिक्रीज करेगा, इतना करेंगे तो कितना डिक्रीज करेगा. एक्चुअली इट्स नॉट डिक्रीजिंग, इट्स इंक्रीजिंग. दैट्स व्हाई इट्स अ पॉजिटिव, दिस इंक्रीज करेगा और डिक्रीज करेगा. एज ऑफ नाउ इट्स a 0. It's not increasing, neither decreasing, right? Now come to the interpretation of the column of the body of the table. Let's say I want to explain you interpretation of column of the body of the table. एक एक करके I will explain one by one. Say I want to explain first of all about the x column. X column, this column I want to explain. है ना, पहले इसको लिख लेते हैं. Let's write it separately. I'm explaining first is the x column. If it is x, here it was S1, S2, and S3. It was 3, 5, and 2. See, it's 3, 5, and 2. I've written this part and S1. For S, it is 3. Okay. Now, how do I explain it? If one unit of x, एक unit x की, is introduced in the solution. If I introduce 1 unit of x, as of now, x is 0. In the initial basic feasible solution, x is 0. Where x is 0 right now. If I am entering or we are introducing 1 unit of x into the solution, we need to sacrifice 3 units of S1. Right? Means हम S1 decreases to the 3 units. ये decrease हो जाएगा. S1 will decrease to 3 units. Natural हमारा अगर एक लिया है तो उसके एक 3 चला जाएगा. Will be sacrificed. In the same way, if I introduce 1 unit of x, that it will sacrifice 5 units of S2. If I introduce 1 unit of x, it will sacrifice 2 units of S3. Right? Or we will say it's a decrease 2 units of S3. So by overall the reduction in the objective function z due to these sacrifices, अगर ये sacrifices करें तो reduction क्या हो जाएगा? Reduction in objective function. Reduction in objective function z due to these sacrifices would be z. हम कह रहे हैं डिक्रीज हो रहा है. रिडक्शन कितना? 3 का दिस 3, बस इसका कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन 0 था. प्लस 5 यूनिट्स कम हुए. 0 plus 2 into 0 means 0. How much we have sacrificed? 0. We can see it's decreasing. It's decreasing. It's decreasing. So we got it 0. With this above sacrifices, I can say with the above sacrifices, we get 1 unit of x variable. I think it's clear. This 1 unit of, let me write this also. This 1 unit of x will contribute 20 rupees to the objective function. हमें पता ही है. Why its contribution is 20 rupees? We have seen over there. I'll show you. Its contribution is 20 rupees. ठीक है, 1 का कंट्रीब्यूशन कितना है? 1 unit of x contribution is 20 rupees. If I bring x into the solution, in place of x1, it will remove 3 units of, we will sacrifice 3 units of s1, we will sacrifice 5 units of s2, and we will sacrifice 2 units of s3. And the objective function, and by reducing them, my total reduction in the objective function would be this 0. So with the above sacrifices, we need 1 unit of x variable. This 1 unit of x will contribute rupees 20 to the objective function. I think it's clear. Hence, we can say net effect kya rahega? What would be the net effect? Will be Cj minus Zj. Just give me a second. Cj minus Zj would be my net effect. Will be 20 minus 0, which would be the 20, which is increase. I will say net effect will be 20. I think it's clear how we interpreted this column, x column. I will explain you. This interpretation, I think, is clear. I will just try to explain you the contribution for the another column. Let's say column, y column. I think the same explanation, but understand it again. Y over here, I will write y again, S1, S2, and S3. Let's see the values. Values are 3 to 6. 3 to 6. Again, I'm explaining the same way. 1 unit of y is introduced in the solution. If I introduce in the solution 1 unit of y, right now my y is equals to 0. But I want to introduce it as a solution. We need to sacrifice something. What that sacrification would be? I will sacrifice 3 units of S1, 2 units of S2, and 6 units of S3. We would sacrifice these things. Means S1 will decrease 3 units, S2 will decrease or sacrifice 2 units, and S3 will sacrifice 6 units. If I introduce 1 unit of y. Okay? Now, what would be the objective function or the reduction in the objective function? Reduction in objective function. Reduction in objective function कितना हो गया हमारा? Zj. Reduction in objective function. Again 3. हमें पता है इसका 0 है coefficient 0 plus 2 into 0, that is decreasing, that is also reduced. We are sacrificing this much. Coefficient इसका 6 है 0, so we are sacrificing 6, 0. With these above sacrifices, we will get 1 unit of y variable. This 1 unit of y variable will contribute to the, हमें मालूम है कि इसका contribution कितना है? Is 30 rupees to the objective function. So we can calculate the net effect. Net effect of bringing y into the solution and removing any one of them. So what would be my net effect? That is a Cj minus Zj would be, we know for y it is rupees 30 minus 0. Is 30 now or 35 or how much it is? Yeah, 30. 30 minus 0, it would be 30. That would be my answer, right? That would be net effect. Now, in the same way, if you want to understand about other columns, like it was about the column X column, Y column. Now, let me explain you it for the another column like S1 column. Please, the concepts should be very clear for the applicability. Solve तो आप simplex method simply solve कर लोगे फटाफट equations बना के tables बना के. But you should know the meaning, then only you will be able to solve the different types of the question and we are able to explain it also. Why we are doing what? One should know. Now, हम इस column को explain करते हैं S1. Now, in S1, here is S1, it is S1, S2, S3. it was 1, 0, 0. Yeah. Now, S1 is already, we know S1 is already present in the solution as X1 की value कितनी है? Is 36, right? This shows that whole of the time of on machine 1, whole of the time on machine M1 is available with us. सारा का सारा टाइम हमारे पास, क्योंकि हमारे पास कॉन्स्टेंट में था ना 36 was अवेलेबिलिटी टाइम. मैक्सिमम अवेलेबल हमारे कितने थे? 36, है ना. मैक्सिमम अवेलेबल टाइम था 36 और हमारा वो दैट इज S1. हमारे पास S1 के लिए विच इज ऑलरेडी इन द सोल्यूशन, तो वी हैव द एंटायर टाइम और shows that the whole of the time for the machine M1 is there for is 36 is available with us. And here 1, यहाँ जो 1 है, here 1 here means if you want to introduce 1 unit of S1 in the solution, then we need to sacrifice 1 unit of S1. इसका मतलब से एक यूनिट इंट्रोड्यूस करने हैं तो मतलब इसका 1 यूनिट हम सेक्रीफाइस करेंगे. सो देयर विल बी अ रिप्लेसमेंट ओनली. S1 की जगह फिर से दोबारा S1 ही डाल दिया. नथिंग न्यू और डिफरेंट. सो S1 इज हैज नो रिलेशनशिप विद ऑन एंड 0 यहाँ पे इसलिए बिकॉज S1 हैज नो रिलेशनशिप विद S2 और S3. इनको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा. दे हैव नो रिलेशनशिप्स. हैंस 0 यूनिट्स ऑफ S2, है ना, और द S of 0 units of S3 will be sacrificed. So I can say my Z objective function, how much reduction in the objective function? It would be 0 multiplied by 1 plus 0 multiplied by 0 plus 0 multiplied by 0. That comes out to be the 0. Right? So my net effect Cj minus Zj would be 0 minus 0 would be 0. So net effect will also be 0. ठीक है, क्योंकि हमें पता है कि this x1 1 unit of S1 x1 sorry S1 1 unit of S1 is contributing rupees 0 to the objective function. हमें पता है 0 contribute कर रहा है. So that's why it would be 0. Clear? The same thing I can explain you with the column S2. S2 column, how's the S2 column is written? S2, S1, S2, S3. It would have been 0, 1, 0. Right? Again, the same thing, S2 is already there, is already present in the solution, as S2 की value we know is 50. See, this shows that the whole of the time on machine 2, because S2 is related with the M2, and M2 is available with us. So S2 has no relationship with S1 and has no relationship with S2. Right? So they don't have the relationship. Hence the entry 1 or entry 0 is given here. No relationship, but entry 1 here is means that if you want to introduce the 1 unit of S2, you have to sacrifice 1 unit of S2. Means it's simply a replacement that we have just discussed in the S1 column. Means that's the only replacement. So we can say Z objective function, the reduction in the objective function would be 0 multiplied by 0 plus 0 multiplied by 1 with the reduction plus 0 multiplied by 0 comes out to be 0. And Cj net effect of it would be, हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ा अगर हम इसको S2 को जगह S2 को लेके आ रहे हैं. इसको रिप्लेस आपस में रिप्लेस करने का कोई लॉजिक नहीं है. Placement is 0 because Cj's का contribution, S2's contribution is 0 and Jj is also 0, so it comes out to be 0. I think it's clear this concept of how or what does it mean. The interpretation of these column is clear to you as of now, I think. Now, I want to explain you about this row, how to interpret. Okay, a little bit things related with the Cj row. Cj minus Zj row. Okay. Now, first thing related with Cj minus Zj row entries for the basic variable will always be 0. Entries, again I am repeating, Cj minus Zj entries for basic variables. Basic variables कौन से? जो हमारे already solutions हैं, will always be 0. ऑलवेज रिमेंबर दिस, नहीं तो कुछ गलती करी है आपने, नहीं आ रहे हैं तो, या रीजन आई विल एक्सप्लेन। सी, आई एम सेइंग जो भी आपके बेसिक वेरिएबल्स कौन से थे, S1 S2 S3, इनकी वैल्यूज 0 0 0 ही आएंगी। इन Cj minus Zj rows, the entries for the basic variable, these are the basic variables which were there, S1 S2 S3, their entries will be 0. Now why? Question comes, why it is so? Because they are already present in the solution. Simple thing. Because they are already present in the solution. Right? And they are so, their impact is already considered, is already present in the contribution, in the contribution function or in the objective function. है ना? क्योंकि ऑलरेडी ही प्रेजेंट है तो इसलिए उनकी वैल्यू 0 आएगी, क्योंकि उनको ऐड करने से या रिमूव करने से डजंट मैटर, क्योंकि ऑलरेडी देयर सोल्यूशन और देयर सोल्यूशन इज ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट देयर। क्योंकि देखो हमारा इसके अंदर 0 0 आ रहा है क्योंकि उनका ऑलरेडी कंट्रीब्यूशन है, ये हमारे सॉल्यूशंस में है और इनका कंट्रीब्यूशन ऑलरेडी देयर, वॉट एवर द कंट्रीब्यूशन इज। तो हम यहाँ पर सीजे माइनस जेजे में हम नेट इफेक्ट दिखाई नहीं रहे कि क्या होगा, इज 0। राइट, लेट मी रिपीट, entries for the basic variables will always be 0 in the row Cj minus Zj in our table of simplex, because they are already present in the solution or their impact is already present in the contribution function of the objective function. I think it's clear. Second point, understand that part? This was the first part. B part to understand. Cj minus Zj row entries for the non-basic variables, non-basic variables will be some non-zero number. क्या होंगी? Will be some non-zero number. It will not be 0, anything would be, it can be anything, but it would be non-zero number. ठीक है? अब ये अगेन द क्वेश्चन कम्स, why is it so? आप देखो नॉन बेसिक्स के अंदर जो भी नॉन बेसिक्स थे उनकी नॉन जीरो नंबर्स आए हैं। अब क्यों आए हैं, व्हाई इट इज, लेट मी एक्सप्लेन। बिकॉज दे आर नॉट प्रेजेंट इन द सोल्यूशन, बिकॉज दे आर नॉट प्रेजेंट इन द सोल्यूशन, सोल्यूशन में है ही नहीं पहले से। इफ दे आर नॉट प्रेजेंट इन द सोल्यूशन मीन्स देयर impact on the objective function, needs to be studied. हमें पता होना जरूरी है, इनका स्टडी करना है कि क्या है इनका कंट्रीब्यूशन, क्योंकि ऑलरेडी सोल्यूशन में नहीं है, बट वी नीड टू स्टडी इट फॉर द, क्यों स्टडी करनी है, फॉर द इम्प्रूवमेंट, फॉर द इम्प्रूवमेंट ऑफ द सोल्यूशन। हम चाहते हैं हमें सोल्यूशन जो मैक्सिमाइज हो जाए, हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव फंक्शन जो हमारा प्रॉफिट है मैक्सिमाइज हो जाए। अभी जो 0 है, बट ये क्या, इज इट द ऑप्टिमाइज वन? नो। तो वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड कि किस तरीके से हमारा और इम्प्रूवमेंट आ सकता है, राइट? सो टू अंडरस्टैंड, बट एक इसमें क्या चीज है, बट वी मे फाइंड 0 value for non basic variable in Cj minus Zj row. एक ये भी पॉसिबल है, बट समटाइम्स व्हाट हैपन, हम देख सकते हैं, हम आपको बता रहे हैं कि नॉन बेसिक वेरिएबल्स विल बी हैव नॉन जीरो वैल्यू, बट एक कोई कंडीशन ऐसी हो सकती है जब हमारा Cj माइनस Zj रो में हमारा नॉन बेसिक वेरिएबल जीरो आ जाए। अगर ऐसा आ जाता है, then this situation creates a special case. And what's the special case? We will discuss in detail in some of the questions. That's the multiple optimal solution. Right? I think the concept is clear as of now. Now, on the fourth step, we have done the three steps. The first one was the formulation of LPP, right? Then standardization of the LPP by adding or introducing the slack variable into it. Third step, we have done about the setup of initial basic feasible solution by solving it. And then we have created the table. First W of simplex. ठीक है, सिंप्लेक्स मेथड का फर्स्ट टैब्लू हमने क्रिएट कर दिया। एंड वी हैव अंडरस्टूड द इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ ईच थिंग। ये हमारा S1 पे हमारे बेसिक वेरिएबल्स हैं जो नॉन जीरो वैल्यू, मतलब इनकी जो है नॉन जीरो है। क्या सोल्यूशन है? 36, 50 एंड 60 रिस्पेक्टिवली, और उनका कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन जीरो है। एक्सप्लेन द रीजन ऑल्सो। देन वी हैव रिटन दिस कोफिशिएंट्स। वाई, व्हाट डज इट मीन? हम अगर एक यूनिट इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाह रहे हैं सिस्टम के अंदर, सोल्यूशन के अंदर x की, तो 3 यूनिट्स ऑफ S1 विल बी sacrificed, 5 units of S2 would be sacrificed like this. And for these cases also I explained. Then this is a contribution of each of these variables. We have wrote it over there. Then Z, we have calculated Z's contribution कितना है अगर हमारा solution S1 है, then 36 multiplied by contributing, because 1 unit of S1 is contributing 0 to the objective function. तो अगर हमारा 36 हम S1 बना तो रहे हैं, but उनका contribution कितना है? 0 plus 50 into 0, 60 into 0. So we came out to be the 0. So like that, 3 into 0, 0, 0. Then we have calculated the net effect. Net effect कितना है हमारा? अगर हमारा x इंट्रोड्यूस हो रहा है, 20 minus 0 would be 20. 30 minus 0 would be 30. 0 minus 0 would be 0. 0 minus 0 would be 0. 0 minus 0 would be 0. I think it's clear from this table. And then we have seen the maximum net effect is 30. So that would be your key column, and 30 we will mark the arrow like this, and it means y would be my entering variable. अगर मेरे सारे पॉजिटिव आ रहे हैं और जीरो आ रहे हैं, इट मीन्स मेरा ऑप्टिमल सोल्यूशन नहीं मिला है मुझे अभी। इट्स नेसेसरी सारे नेगेटिव या जीरो आते, एट द टाइम आई वुड हैव सेड कि मेरा ऑप्टिमल सोल्यूशन मिल गया है। बट ओवर हियर वी गेट द समथिंग पॉजिटिव, इट मीन्स नेट इफेक्ट्स है, इनका कुछ कंट्रीब्यूशन अगर ऑब्जेक्टिव फंक्शंस में से इनमें से कोई वेरिएबल आ जाता है, देन इट विल कंट्रीब्यूट माय कंट्रीब्यूशन, माय जेड वुड बी इंक्रीज ऑब्जेक्टिव फंक्शन। तो हमने इसमें देखा मैक्सिमम किसका है? जेड 30 इज द मैक्सिमम, तो वी विल लार्जेस्ट इज द 30, वी विल कीप इट एज अ entering variable. Then we will calculate the, and this row would be, this column would be my key column. Now we will calculate the ratio for them to understand कौन सा डिपार्टिंग होगी। अगर हम y को ऐड करना है तो इनमें से कोई तो जाना चाहिए, कौन सा जाएगा? उसके लिए हम कैलकुलेट करते हैं जो भी सोल्यूशन आया उसको डिवाइडेड बाय दैट, सेक्रीफाइस करने पे कितना आ रहा है हमारा की कॉलम। 36 डिवाइडेड बाय 3 इज 12, 50 डिवाइडेड बाय 2 इज 25, 60 डिवाइडेड बाय 6 इज 10. इसमें 12, 25, 30, which is the minimum, 10 is minimum, then this row would be my key row, और या हम S3 को बोल सकते हैं डिपार्टिंग वेरिएबल। ठीक है, और जो भी इंटरसेक्शन पॉइंट आ रहा है ये वाला जो हमारी वैल्यू 6 है, ये दैट वुड बी माय की नंबर। अब इसके बाद ही हम वी विल गो अहेड विद हाउ टू प्रिपेयर द टेबल। नेक्स्ट स्टेप विल बी टेस्ट फॉर द ऑप्टिमैलिटी, एंड देन वी विल डिस्कस अबाउट डिटरमाइन द की कॉलम, की रो एंड द की नंबर, हाउ वी हैव कैलकुलेटेड इट। आई विल एक्सप्लेन यू इन मोर डिटेल, right? And then we will talk about how we derive the W2. I think यहाँ तक क्लियर है। और इफ यू वांट मी, लेट मी एक्सप्लेन लिटिल बिट। ऑप्टिमैलिटी टेस्ट के लिए हमें ये देखना है, फोर्थ हमारा स्टेप होता है, फोर्थ स्टेप इज ऑप्टिमैलिटी टेस्ट, टेस्ट फॉर ऑप्टिमैलिटी। टेस्ट फॉर ऑप्टिमैलिटी मीन्स हमें वी हैव टू चेक ऑल द Cj minus Zj values needs to be 0 or negative. अगर हमारी जीरो नेगेटिव है देन इज फाइन, वी विल से हमारा ऑप्टिमल सोल्यूशन मिल गया है। अगर प्रेजेंस ऑफ एनी पॉजिटिव एंट्री इंडिकेट्स दैट सोल्यूशन कैन फर्दर बी इंप्रूव्ड, हमारे इस वाले केस के अंदर हमारे को कुछ पॉजिटिव, हमारे दो दो पॉजिटिव मिल गए हैं, वी कैन से इट कैन फर्दर बी इम्प्रूव्ड, राइट? दैट्स द, sorry, I think it's clear. Then and then fifth step is determine key. I'm just writing, but I have explained already. Key column, key row, and key number. How we have identified? If one unit of x is brought into the solution, इसका मतलब ये है कि अगर if I bring one unit of x brought into the solution, the objective function will be increased by 20. If I bring one unit of y into the solution, objective function will increase by 30. है ना? We can say z will increase more if one unit of y is brought into the solution. अगर मैं एक यूनिट y के लिए आती हूँ तो ज्यादा बेनिफिशियल है, इसमें सिर्फ 20 का हो रहा है तो 30 का, 10 का ज्यादा फायदा है ना? तो दैट्स व्हाई दिस इज माय की कॉलम. द की कॉलम कॉरेस्पॉन्ड्स टू द लार्जेस्ट पॉजिटिव एंट्री ऑफ सी जे माइनस जेड जे, अगर हमें समझना है तो. ठीक है? इफ इन द राइटिंग वी कैन से द की कॉलम कॉरेस्पॉन्ड्स टू द largest positive entry in Cj minus Zj. Now, in the same way, determine variable that will depart from the current solution. अब एक current solution से कौन सा depart करेगा? I just simply explain you by creating the ratio column. हमने एक ratio column create किया, और the row with the minimum non-negative quotient. Non-negative. Please remember that non-negative. Non-negative. Non-negative quotient. Quotient in the ratio, in the key row. That would be my key row. मेरी की रो वही होगी, नॉन नेगेटिव होना चाहिए, है ना? और इसके लिए इस वाले केस में मेरा क्या है डिपार्टिंग वेरिएबल? S3. I think it's clear. My S3 is this. S3 is a departing variable. That's why ये मेरा की रो हो गई है. Now the number at the intersection of the key column and the key ratio, or the key on the key column and the key row is a key number. So 6 is the key number. I think यहाँ तक clear है. Now the next step, sixth step, is about the derivation of the table 2. How we create the table 2, how we transform it, that we will do again by after having the break for the 5 minutes. Chaliye, thank you, and revise it first properly.